Imagine this. You're a 17th century French noble. You've got powdered wigs, velvet pants, and enough perfume to choke a stable horse. And yet, you haven't bathed in years. On purpose. Why? Because someone once told you that hot water opens your pores and lets disease in. And that made total sense to you. Today, we take showers like clockwork. Some of us even shower twice a day because we're either highly hygienic or just emotionally spiraling. But for most of human history, bathing wasn't just optional. It was controversial, confusing, and occasionally criminally gross. Welcome to History on the Margins, the podcast that takes history out behind the barn, hoses it down, and asks what the hell it was thinking. I'm your host, John Williamson, and in today's episode, we're wading into the murky, sweaty, slightly fermented waters of humanity's long and complicated relationship with cleanliness. So light a candle, draw a bath, or don't, and join me as we uncover the dirty truth about getting clean. Now, before we all start congratulating modern society for inventing body wash and loofahs shaped like hedgehogs, let's give some credit where credit is due. Because the truth is, ancient people were, in many ways, way cleaner than we are. Let's start with the Egyptians. These were people who basically made bathing a competitive sport. They scrubbed daily using sand, oils, and something called natron, a sort of salty baking soda. Think of it as ancient Egyptian Axe body spray, but functional. They even had an early soap from animal fat and ash. Disgusting? Yes. Effective? Also yes. These folks were into body oils, exfoliating with pumice stones, and getting spiritually clean, and physically spotless. You were expected to smell good enough that the gods wouldn't be like, nah, not today. Then came the Greeks. Same love of cleanliness, but with a bit more flex. Literally. Bathing happened in gymnasiums. Because why not combine hygiene with competitive disc throwing? And they had a method. You'd oil yourself up like a Thanksgiving turkey, exercise, then scrape it all off with a curved blade called a sturgill. It was basically like CrossFit with skincare. And of course, the Romans took it to the next level. Because Romans didn't just bathe, they turned it into a lifestyle brand. Their public bathhouses, thermae, were the original wellness spas. Giant complexes with hot rooms, cold plunges, saunas, and naturally, lots of gossip. Want to do a little business? Head to the bath. Feeling philosophical? Bath. Looking for a mild concussion in a game of handball? Also bath. They even had heated floors. That's right, radiant heat. Meanwhile, I still have to put socks on across my kitchen in January. But here's where it gets extra weird. Romans used fermented urine as mouthwash. No, you didn't mishear that. Urine, mouth, wash. It was a natural source of ammonia and, well, I guess that's enough science to justify it if you're into pea science. So yes, for a glorious stretch of time, humanity figured out how to get squeaky clean with no Wi-Fi, no hot water heaters, and definitely no lavender-scented bubble bath. But then, as it always does, history took a dark, sweaty, bacteria-covered turn. Enter the Middle Ages, and things are about to get musty. When Rome fell, so did basically everything. Roads, plumbing, government, and most tragically, regular bathing. With the collapse of the Roman infrastructure, those glorious bathhouses turned into abandoned stone ruins, filled with rats and regret. Indoor plumbing? Gone. Hot water on demand? A myth of the ancients. Personal hygiene? Optional at best. Offensive at worst. And just to really nail the coffin shut on cleanliness, in marched the medieval church, waving the banner of morality with one hand and a very full chamber pot in the other. See, in early Christian Europe, nakedness was now sinful. Bathing was tied to vanity. And public bathhouses? Those were for sinners, seducers, and certainly not for respectable people. You want a hot soak? You might as well ask a priest if you can sin recreationally, because a clean body was seen as a distraction from a clean soul. So naturally, people just stopped, like altogether. And when they did bathe, it wasn't exactly a spa day. It was more like a splash and dash with cold water, a bucket, and existential dread. Then came the Black Death, and with it, the ultimate PR disaster for bathing. Doctors, if we can even call them that, started warning that hot water opened up your skin, which made it easier for bad air to sneak in and kill you. So naturally, the logical response was never bathe again. Problem solved. Instead, people started layering on clothes like onions of filth. They stuffed herbs and dried flowers into their collars and sleeves to cover up the stench of survival. It wasn't uncommon to wear the same outfit for months. Months. One doctor even advised people to avoid bathing because it draws the plague into the body. Meanwhile, his patients were probably just dying from inhaling each other. And in case you're wondering, yes, royalty was also gross. Kings, queens, nobles, all decked out in gold and velvet, while smelling like a wet dog that rolled in a haunted cheese wheel. You know how today we romanticize castles and fairy tales? Yeah, those moats? Not decorative. Basically open sewers. Those gowns? Rarely washed. Those medieval banquets? Everyone was sweating through layers of wool, while bacteria threw a rave on their scalps. And that's not even getting into the lice, fleas, or the fact that bathing could get you accused of witchcraft if you look too healthy afterward. So next time you complain about your shower pressure, just remember, your ancestors were sousing themselves in fear and fermented body odor. But don't worry, the Enlightenment is coming. Kind of. Eventually? Maybe? So by now you might be thinking, okay, sure, peasants were dirty, but surely royalty had better hygiene, right? Oh, sweet listener, no. In fact, the rich were often the worst offenders, because they had access to the most expensive alternatives to actual bathing, like imported perfume, decorative wigs, and an army of servants trained to pretend everything was fine. It's fine. It's all fine. Blech. Let's start with Louis XIV of France, a man so fancy he called himself the Sun King, yet allegedly only bathed twice in his entire life. Twice. In 76 years. He ruled over one of the most opulent courts in European history and still managed to treat a bathtub like it was haunted. Instead, he preferred to be dusted with powder and spritzed with floral perfume. And not just once a day, multiple times. His bedchamber probably smelled like a florist shop collapsed into a cheese shop and burst into flames. His courtiers followed suit, literally. They wore heavy, ornate garments designed not just to impress, but to trap in every last drop of musty body heat. Think of Versailles as the original Coachella. Visually stunning, but everyone smells like feet and anxiety. And then there's Queen Isabella of Castile, who reportedly said she had only bathed once in her life, on her wedding day, which is somehow romantic and horrifying at the same time. Fun fact, royalty didn't just skip bathing, they also skipped indoor toilets. Many castles had garden robes, which are exactly as elegant as they sound, holes in the wall that dropped into the moat below. So if you were wondering what the castle moat smell was, it wasn't just algae. And yet, despite all of this, people in power were rarely questioned about their hygiene. They just rebranded it. Being stinky meant you were holy or dignified, or just too busy ruling the world to deal with armpits. Meanwhile, doctors in the 16th and 17th centuries were still warning against water. Some claimed it could disturb the humors. Others said warm baths could cause weakness of the mind. which, let's be honest, might explain a lot about the decisions being made in those royal courts. Instead of bathing, people would change their linen shirts more frequently and call it cleaning themselves, like dry shampoo for your entire body, which is a bold strategy. But as science began to rise and plumbing made a comeback, humanity started to wonder, what if being clean didn't kill you? And thus began a slow return of the tub, with a side of soap and a very aggressive marketing campaign. By the 18th and 19th centuries, a few things happened that really shook up our relationship with cleanliness. One, cities started becoming, gross, like cholera in the drinking water gross. Two, science caught up and was like, hey everyone, maybe disease is caused by tiny invisible things, not demons or bad smells. And three, the Industrial Revolution made bathtubs, soap, and plumbing way more accessible, which meant, embrace yourself, people actually started using them. Enter germ theory. Suddenly, doctors like Ignaz Semmelweis and Louis Pasteur were telling people that washing their hands could prevent death. And while they were initially laughed at, because of course they were, eventually the idea caught on. Nothing says progress like fewer plague rats and more soap. And once plumbing entered homes, bathtubs weren't just luxury items for the rich anymore. They became the centerpiece of hygiene campaigns. By the late 1800s, cities like London and New York were building public bathhouses again. Not for socializing this time, but to keep people from dying, which honestly is probably a better reason. Of course, this being the 19th and early 20th century, cleanliness wasn't just about health. It became moral. It became patriotic. Enter the golden age of soap marketing, where every advertisement was basically a passive-aggressive guilt trip.
Be clean, be confident, be American. Use Victory Soap, the only soap that keeps your family safe and your neighbors impressed.
These ads didn't just tell you to wash. They implied that not washing meant you were dirty on the inside, too. Bad hygiene? That's how your husband leaves you, or how your country loses the war, or how little Timmy ends up sad and unloved. Even during World War I, soldiers were issued soap as part of their rations, not for luxury, but to prevent Trent rot and disease. Soap had officially gone from suspicious luxury to a national duty. By the time the 1950s rolled around, America was bathing daily, sometimes twice. You had commercials with smiling housewives scrubbing their kids like they were prepping them for meat inspection. Cleanliness became the hallmark for respectability and a great way to sell things no one really needed. And we haven't looked back since. Well, mostly. Because even though modern science and plumbing got us back into the tub, that doesn't mean the story ends here. In fact, today we're still arguing about how much bathing is too much, and whether celebrities skipping showers means we're about to return to the Dark Ages. Today, most of us take bathing for granted. It's part of our routine. You shower before work, before a date, before anything where you don't want to smell like warmed over despair. But even now, the debate rages on. Dermatologists are telling us to shower less to preserve our skin's natural microbiome. Meanwhile, some celebrities are skipping showers altogether and proudly declaring it to the world. Here's just a taste. Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis only bathe their kids when they're visibly dirty. Jake Gyllenhaal says he finds bathing less necessary. Brad Pitt reportedly just wipes down with baby wipes on busy days. It's almost like we've come full circle, except now we have Wi-Fi, dermatologists, and a subscription to skincare boxes. Of course, different cultures still do it differently. In Japan, public baths, or onsen, are deeply respected and ritualistic. In Turkey, hammams offer a spiritual and physical cleansing experience. In Russia, they beat you with birch branches and call it wellness. So what have we learned? That bathing was never just about hygiene. It was about ritual, about identity, about what a culture values or fears. Whether it was ancient Egyptian priests, medieval monks, powdered French kings, or Brad Pitt with a wet nap, we've all been trying to find the line between fresh and funky. And spoiler alert, it's a very thin line. Thanks for scrubbing through history with me. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the weird world of bathing, be sure to subscribe to History on the Margins, where the past is strange and usually smells worse than we imagined. Next time, a mysterious plague hits a medieval city, and instead of fleeing, people start dancing uncontrollably until they drop dead. Nope, seriously, it happened. It's called the Dancing Plague, and it's even weirder than it sounds. Until then, stay curious, stay weird, and for the love of history, take a shower. Or don't. I'm not here to judge.